Hey everybody, my name is Guy, and today I'm going to be giving you a demonstration of AssetTiger. AssetTiger is our asset management tool brought to you by myassettag.com. This is going to be a different video from the other videos on the site. For one thing, it's going to be a lot slower because I'm going to step through everything in real time with you, step by step, starting with creating your account all the way through some of the highest functionality available to you on the platform. If you're new here, welcome. Thanks for joining us. This is a great way to learn if AssetTiger might be right for you and your business. If you've been here a while, also welcome. We're going to talk through some of the things you might not know about the platform, and I'll definitely address some frequently asked questions. Okay, so in preparation for this, I spoke with Taina and Richard, who head up our customer service team in our office in Brooklyn. And I wanted to know why people called in. I wanted to know what they're using the system for, what options might they not know about, what are some of the frustrations they have with AssetTiger, and what are the simple solutions to ease those frustrations. Well, I learned quite a few things. The number one thing I learned is that AssetTiger has a ton of functionality, but most people are only using 2 or 3 things. So hopefully by watching this video, you'll learn different ways to use AssetTiger to make your day-to-day business even easier. AssetTiger has been changing over the last couple of years, and that's because every time we get a suggestion from one of you or we come up against a problem and we creatively solve it, we take all that information and we give it to our developers who try to make the system stronger every day. We want to be able to grow with your business as your business grows. In fact, we want to be the only asset management tool you'll ever need. Okay, this video will be broken up into chapters. There'll be different chapter titles, so if you want to skip around and learn different things, feel free to do that. All right, so let's start at the beginning. Like I said, AssetTiger is our asset management tool, and it's entirely cloud-based. So that means anywhere you have access to the internet, you have access to your list of assets. And we're going to start by talking about the web-based app. Now, there's also the mobile app, which you can use on your phone or on a tablet, which is great if you want to scan things with your camera, if you want to do an audit in real time. You can't beat the mobile app for that. But this video is going to be about the web-based app. All right, let's get started. All right, let's start at the very beginning. That's creating your new account. You do that by coming to this button up here, create new account, and click. Now, you've seen a box like this 1,000 times. You have to fill in your information, your name, email address, your password, repeat your password, and you start from there. So I'm going to do that right now. Okay, make sure to check out the terms and conditions and the privacy policy. Click here. And if you are in fact not a robot, click here and click sign up. Okay, so this is a message telling you that you've got an email in your personal email account that will verify that it is in fact your email account. So go to your personal email. All right, here's that email. It says, to register as an AssetTiger user, please verify your email account by clicking the button below. So click Verify Email, which will take us back to AssetTiger. Okay, so in the next couple of steps, we're going to put in the information about the company, and we're going to figure out how to organize the assets once they're put into the system. I'm going to say this 30 times in this video. Everything is changeable down the line, so you're not saying no to any of the functionality of AssetTiger at this early stage. We're just going to figure out the most logical way to begin, and I'll step you through that right now. Okay, put in the information about the company. This company is at 123 Main Street in Charlotte, North Carolina, 28204. Okay. The time zone is in fact Eastern time, so I won't change that. I want to do the currency in dollars. All this looks good. If I wanted to drop my logo in, I could drag and drop it right here, but I'm going to skip that for the time being and click continue. Okay, so let's get organized. So we want to figure out ways to describe where assets will be located. And the largest designation we have is sites. So for example, this company has an office that's in Charlotte, North Carolina, and an office that's in Columbia, South Carolina. So let's establish those as the 2 sites, the 2 largest designations, the places where assets could be. All right, we'll put them in right here. So in order to do that, click Add New Site. And as I said, there is a Charlotte office. And anything that doesn't have an asterisk is optional. You can put it in later or you can skip it entirely. So I'm going to skip it, click add. All right, here's that first site. And to add a second site, I'm going to click add new site again, Columbia office. Okay, skipping all this, like I said, and click add. And now we have our two sites. If that looks good, click continue. Okay, so one designation down from sites is location. Locations can be the places within the site where things are stored. So let's say for this example, in the Charlotte office, there are 2 rooms and a warehouse where we could possibly have the assets. We're going to put those in as the locations. And then for South Carolina, we'll put in the locations within the Columbia office. All right, let me show you how. All right, so like I said, in the Charlotte office, we're going to click on the Charlotte office, click add new location. And like I said, we have the warehouse. Add. Here's that warehouse. Add another location, room 101. Oops, spelled that wrong. Room 101. Click add. And let's add a third one, add room 102. In case you haven't noticed, AssetTiger will alphabetize. So this has been automatically alphabetized. And any of this information is changeable at this point or any point down the line. So let's say you decide that you're not going to store things in room 101 anymore. You can edit this and let's change it to room 103. Room 101 has burned down. Room 103 is now where we store things. Update. And as you see, it's been updated right here. And again, alphabetized. Okay, so let's add the locations for the second office, for the Columbia office. You do that by pulling down on this menu to the Columbia office. And click here to add new locations. Cabinet. Maybe things will be in the showroom, on the showroom floor. And lastly, how about a garage? All right, if this looks good, click continue. Okay, the next thing to get organized is the categories. Now, I might have mentioned when you input an asset, there are 2 vital pieces of information. One is the asset tag ID, which is the barcode or the letters or numbers that identify that asset. And the other thing is a description of what the asset is. Is it a phone charger? Is it a calculator? Is it a cargo van? Now, those different kinds of assets can be grouped into categories, which will be really helpful down the line. So let's say you have some pickup trucks, a snowplow, and some cars. You can make a category called vehicles, and that can organize that for later, or it can a category named office furniture, whatever you want. So let's take a closer look at categories, and I'll explain what I mean. Okay, so we start with a couple of categories that are really common, and like everything else on AssetTiger, this is completely customizable. So let's say building improvements is a category we're simply not going to use. We can edit this by clicking edit and make it phones and chargers, because that will be a category we'll use. Click update, and here we go. Here's phones and chargers. Again, this has been alphabetized. Let's say we're never going to use buildings. Buildings is just not a type of asset we're going to have. Click delete, delete to confirm, and now buildings is no longer on the list. All right, once you have this exactly the way you want, click continue. Okay, on this page, we see the database fields. These are the pieces of information that are collected each time an asset goes into the system. As I mentioned, the 2 things that are required are the asset tag ID, which is the barcode, the letters and numbers that identify that asset, and the second thing is the asset description. If you take a look over here, you'll see that both of these things have asterisks, which, as I said, means these are the required pieces of information. In fact, the asset tag ID has a little red key because it's the key piece of information you need for each asset. Here are other things that will be collected, or you'll have the option to collect when you input a new asset. These are all customizable. And again, this is one of those things where you can turn it off now, turn it on later, doesn't really matter. But let's say, for instance, we don't want to collect the information for serial number each time. So let's uncheck that. And now when you input a new asset, it will not ask you for the serial number. Here's a great feature, custom fields. Now let's say we want to add a field that's not already there. Click Add Custom Field. And let's collect information about the color of each asset when we get it. So put color right here. Now, data in a custom field can be in a lot of different formats. So let's say you want to collect the date of the last maintenance, or you want to collect the URL for where the warranty package is. You can put whatever kind of data you want here, but color will be text. So I'll select text. Do I want this data required? Yes, I do. And does this apply to all the categories or limited categories? All categories. All right, click Save. And now each time we put in a new asset, we'll be asked all of these things and the color. All right, if this is the way you want it, click Continue to move on. Okay, on this page, I'm going to show you some of the higher functionality of AssetTiger. These are the bells and whistles that make AssetTiger the most valuable asset management tool around. I'm going to show you some of the things that our customers love to use, some of the most interesting and the newest functions that we have available. Let's take a closer look. The first one I want to talk about is depreciation. Now, you probably know that an asset can change value over time. If you get a car, it's worth something on the first day, it's worth a different value 3 years later, it's worth a different value 5 years later, and this tool will help you track that. So if you click yes, you can track depreciation on any given asset. And what's great is you can also track it on all of your assets. So at any given time, you can know exactly the value of everything that you own, which is a really helpful number to have for insurance, for audits, for doing your taxes. This is a really powerful tool. Now, there are different models for depreciation. You would need an economics textbook to help you decide. I'm not qualified to tell you that, but by far the most common is straight line depreciation, where the value changes at a steady rate over time. So I'm going to click that, and let's look at some of the other things that we have. Funding is a really interesting one. Click yes here. Okay, so let's say you're given a grant or an endowment for $50,000 to update all of the computer equipment in your office. If you have funding clicked, you can keep that information separate. So anything you buy on that fund will be associated with that fund. So you can do an audit of just that fund or of all of your assets in total. Really helpful if you need to separate the way that things are bought. Let's say you want to keep track of when maintenance is due on things. Okay, let's use the example of that cargo van again. Let's say you want to set a calendar that every 6 months the oil gets changed. You can put a maintenance calendar up by making sure that maintenance is clicked yes. What else? What else? Now, the audit is one of the functions that people use all the time. This is something that they use especially with the mobile app. So let's say, for example, once a year you want to make sure that all of your assets are in place. You use the mobile app on your phone or your iPad to call up a list of assets, and you bring that with you to the closet, to the showroom, to room 101, to room 102, and check things off to make sure that everything is there and in working order. That's what you can do with the audit function. What else? What else? I found out from a team in Brooklyn that one of the things that is most commonly used is the check in and check out function. And you can enable that right here. Yeah, so let's say there are teams of salespeople in your office, and every time they go on a sales call, they take a computer, an iPad, and a TV monitor. If you enable this, they can check them in, they can sign their name, actually sign their name digitally, so they make sure that the asset is their responsibility until it comes back. And what I just said is an example of linking assets. Like I said, if the sales team needs those three things, the computer, the iPad, and the TV monitor, that is the mobile sales unit. You can link assets together so they can be checked out at the same time. So you don't have to check out three things, check out one thing. That can be really helpful. All right, if you like all these options, click Finish. All right, here we are at your personal dashboard. You're all set up and ready to go. Okay, so now it's time to start adding assets to your AssetTiger profile. There are two ways to do this. One is to manually add the assets one at a time, and the other is to do what we call a bulk upload, where you take a spreadsheet with all your information, you upload it to the system, and all of your assets will appear in your list of assets. I'm going to talk more about that in a couple of minutes. We're going to start with adding them one at a time. But I should say that we often get the question, can you integrate AssetTiger with an asset management tool you're already using? And the answer is actually kind of no. However, we do make it really easy to transition from one to the other. Any software you're using right now will allow you to download a spreadsheet of your assets. And I'm going to give you all the tools you need to take that spreadsheet and upload it in a couple of minutes to our system so that you can start fresh on AssetTiger. But again, I'll get to that in a couple of minutes. Right now, we're going to start with adding assets one at a time. All right, there are two ways to add an asset right here. The top one is this button at the top, add an asset. You can also get to the same information by going to assets and pulling down to add an asset. Either way, you will get to this page where you can start adding the information. Now, as I've mentioned, there are two pieces of required information, the asset tag ID and the description. Now, let's add the description first. In this case, it's an iPhone. And the asset tag ID is 00178. If you're using a scanner, that'll work here too. If it's a USB scanner or a wireless scanner, just make sure the cursor is in the box for asset tag ID, scan the item, beep, and the information, the asset tag ID, will pop up right in that box. All right, let's add some more information. The purchase date was bought on January 3rd for a cost of $1,200. Purchased from Best Buy and is Apple, and it is an iPhone 13. Now here is this extra field that we added, the field for color. And notice there's an asterisk here because we made this required information so that you can't proceed unless you put in the color. The color is red. Fantastic. Okay, so now we're going to look at the site and location and the next couple of pieces of data. Now, as you remember, we added two sites, the Charlotte office and the Columbia office. And let's say this goes to the Charlotte office. And you'll remember there are three locations within the Charlotte office, room 102, room 103, and the warehouse. We're going to put this in room 102. And what categories? Here are all the categories. Remember, we added the category of phones and chargers. And here it is. So phones and chargers. And the fourth thing is departments, which we actually haven't added yet. See, there's nothing here in the pull down menu. So let's decide which department is going to be using the asset. First, you have to add a couple. Let's add the sales department. Click add. Let's add the accounting department. Great. And let's add admin. All right, now we have three departments to choose from. This phone is going to be used by the sales department, so select sales. All right, the next piece of information is the asset photo. Now, of course, you can take a photo of the asset and upload it right here, but there are other options as well. So I'm going to click choose photo. And yeah, if you have an actual photo, you can upload it right here, but let's use a stock image. We have this great library of stock images. You can just choose the one that looks most like the asset you're adding right now, or use the search function. I'm going to put in phone right here. And this one's pretty close, so I'm going to opt for this image, and here it is. All right, let's continue down. Now you'll remember we opted into tracking depreciation, so here's where we begin with that. Is this a depreciable asset? Yes. The depreciable cost, which is pretty much the cost it begins at, the value when we get it. The asset life, how long? Let's call it 4 years, 48 months. And the salvage value is what the item's worth at the end of its life. Let's call that $100. Now, what kind of depreciation method are we going to use to track this? Again, let's just opt for straight line depreciation. And the date it was acquired was the 3rd of January. Is that right, the 3rd of January? That's correct. Okay, if all this information looks good to you, click Submit. And here we have the first asset in our collection. You'll notice all the information we just put in, the asset tag ID, the purchase date, the cost, all of this. The site and location, it's in room 102 in the Charlotte office. department, category, all that looks great. Now, here's a lot more information, places to look at information about the asset and also to add more information. Let's take a look at the depreciation tab. You'll notice a graph, really helpful to understand how the depreciation works. Here is the value right now, the value in 1 year, 2 years, and so on. And here you have it in plain numbers. Also in here, you can set up a maintenance calendar. You can upload contracts. You can do all sorts of things. Take your time to look around. There's a lot of functionality. All right, there we have it. One asset uploaded, and you're ready to begin. All right, now let's talk about bulk uploading or adding lots of assets all at once. You do that over here under Tools and Import. Now, if you're starting from scratch, if you don't already have a spreadsheet full of assets, the easiest way to do it is to go over here to Download Template. And when you click here, you will get this template. And as you see, it's got all the different fields, the standard fields at the top. And here's an example of how you might fill them out. There's actually a ton of space for information. You almost definitely don't have this much information about your assets. But again, the only things that are required are the asset tag ID and the description. So you can copy and paste from a document you already have, or you can manually add them one at a time, like this. Call this a Dell monitor. And once this is all filled out, you go back to AssetTiger, you choose the file, and you upload it right here. So let's say you already have a document with all of your asset information in it. Maybe you downloaded a spreadsheet from your former asset management software, or you've just been keeping it in one big spreadsheet on your desktop computer. Can you take that information and adapt it to upload it into AssetTiger? Yeah, only takes a couple of clicks. Let me show you how. Here is an example of what a document like that might look like. Here are a bunch of assets and lots of information. Now you notice that this information lines up largely with how we manage it on AssetTiger. These are asset tag IDs, these are descriptions, brand name, date of purchase, and purchase price. So yeah, taking this information and uploading it will just take a couple of clicks. So go back to the import page on AssetTiger, find the file on your personal computer, your desktop computer, and then click upload. But real quick, before I click upload, I want to point out right here, if you click here, you can download the field limits document. This has a ton of information about exactly what kind of data can go into your spreadsheet and easily upload. If you come up against any errors, you'll likely find the information that you need right in that document. Also, feel free to give us a call. You know, we have our customer service team in Brooklyn who are happy to help. All right, let's click upload. Now, this is what is called column mapping. This takes the information from AssetTiger, our fields, and matches them up with the fields from your document. So for example, on AssetTiger, we call it an asset tag ID. Is this an asset tag ID? Yeah, it is. Look at that. On AssetTiger, we have the description field. Is this the description from your spreadsheet? In fact, it is not. So let's click here and find the description. That's the description. Now on AssetTiger, we have a field called purchase from. Do we have that information? Actually, no, that's not collected in your spreadsheet, so we'll leave that as no column. We do have the purchase date in your spreadsheet though, so let's find that right here. We have the brand name in your spreadsheet, so let's find that. Telnet. And we have the cost, the purchase price. We have that as well. And that's all the information from your spreadsheet, so we don't need to fill the rest of these out. We don't need to match these up. Go down to the bottom and click preview. All right, so we can look at these examples and verify that the information is lined up correctly. So let's see. Asset tag IDs. Are these all asset tag IDs? They are. These are all descriptions, purchase dates, brand names, purchase price, and yeah, that's all the information. If this didn't line up, we could go back to upload the document again and map again, but good news is it actually lines up pretty well. Here are 3 questions that don't really concern us. They're more about if you already have a ton of assets in your AssetTiger profile and you're adding more. It doesn't really apply to us at the moment, so I'm going to skip these 3 questions and click Import Data. All right, the assets are uploaded. Let's take a look at them. You can find them here at List of Assets. And here are all the assets, all 523 records. We went from 1 to 523 in a couple of seconds. You can sort through them page by page. Let's take a look at this one, just as an example. Yeah, we got the asset tag ID, a couple pieces of information, and we have the opportunity to add more if we want. But again, we don't need to. We just need these two pieces. And there you have it. You have an uploaded list of assets. Took a couple of seconds. Okay, now that we know how to upload assets, I want to talk about some of the features that people really love and use often in AssetTiger. I've actually gone ahead and signed into a different account, one that's got more assets, that's more lived in, so I can show you some of these things in real time. All right, let's take a look. So let's start by talking about checking things in and checking things out and all the different features we have to make that process quick and effective. All right, so for this example, I'm interested in the laptops that we have in our list of assets. So in order to get to those, I'm going to go to List of Assets right here at the top. I'm going to use the search function right here, type in laptop. And this is going to pull up all of the asset tag IDs, all of the assets that have the word laptop in them, quite a few. Now, right off the bat, you get a lot of information. This laptop, A034, is checked out. These two are available. This one, A038, has a reservation coming up. Somebody's reserved it. A039 is in fact broken and out of circulation. All right, so let's start by looking at laptop A034. You get more information by clicking on View over here. Now, we already knew that this asset was checked out, but now we have some more information. It was checked out by Barbara Bodine. One of the great things about AssetTiger is you can upload a list of all of your employees or all of your students or your maintenance people, whoever might interact with one of your assets. So that way, when an action happens, if it's a check-in or check-out, if it's a reservation, if it's somebody who has a maintenance call, a person's name can be associated with that action. So that person is responsible for making sure it happens. So for instance, if you need to know right now where laptop A034 is, you know who to call. It's Barbara's responsibility. Okay, to illustrate this further, I'm going to actually invent a new employee and I'm going to make some reservations. I'm going to check some things in and out, and I'm going to show you the whole process. Her name is Cass Martinez. And again, we're interested in the laptop, so I'm just going to use the back button to go to that list of laptops. All right, so Cass has just joined the company, and I want to reserve a laptop for her for next week. So the first thing we do is we look for a laptop that is available. This one's checked out. So how about this one, A035? Again, to get more information, we go to View right here. Now, much like a lot of things on AssetTiger, there's several different ways to do this, but my favorite way to make a reservation is to open up the asset like this and go to the Reserve tab right here. When you pull down, you'll actually see a calendar. You can see that there are no reservations coming up, and I want to add one for next week. So I go to the button that says Add Reservation right here. And I'm going to reserve it for next Monday through next Wednesday. If this looks good, click Apply. Now, you can assign things, as I said, to a person. You can also assign things to a site. So, for example, if the entire Columbia office is in charge of a cargo van for the weekend, you can assign it to the site, or even customers for that matter. So, for this example, we're assigning this to Cass, the new person, and she is not in the system yet. So I could pull down this menu, and I'm not going to find her. But I can add her right here by clicking New. As usual, I only need to fill out the boxes with the asterisk. I'm going to skip the rest of this for now and click Add. Now, here she is. She's the person who is in charge of this reservation. Another great option is right here, send a confirmation email. If this is clicked, an email will be automatically sent to Cast to make sure that she knows about this reservation. This is great. It saves time, it saves a phone call or an email, and it also keeps a record of all of the reservations so that you can always look things up in your email. All right, so in order to do this, I'm going to put her email address right here. And I'm actually going to click the Save Email button so that in the future, whenever we reach out to Cast, the email will be saved. Another great option are these reminder emails. You can change the number of days before the event that the reminder is sent out, of course. And if all this looks good, click Reserve. All right, and as we can see, the reservation is noted right here, attached to the asset. And if we go to the Reserve tab, pull down to the calendar, you'll see here's that reservation for Cast from the 24th to the 26th. Furthermore, this will also appear in your dashboard. Let me show you. So to get to the dashboard, click AssetTiger in the upper left. The dashboard is another thing that is completely customizable. There's all sorts of widgets and calendars and charts. One of the widgets I have up is a reservation calendar. So let me scroll down to that. And here it is, reservations. Next week, from Monday to Wednesday, A035 is reserved by Cass Martinez. Perfect.
Hey everybody, it's Guy again from the future, or at least a little bit after I recorded the original part of this video, because there's been a couple of updates to AssetTiger. Now, as I said, our developers are continually working on the platform to make it as strong as possible with their new ideas and ideas that come from you. And one of the things we've done really affects checking things in and out and making reservations, what we call events. Nothing's been taken away. However, things are much more customizable now. Something you wanted, and we're happy to give it to you. So let me walk you through that, and then we'll jump back into the video and continue from there.
Okay, here we have the very familiar list of assets. And this update has to do with events within AssetTiger. Now, what constitutes an event? Something being checked in or checked out, that's an event. If something is recorded as broken, that's an event. A reservation, that's an event. Now, any event attached to any asset will remain on the assets information page. So let's say we want to see the events that had to do with 102. You go right here to View. You go to the tab marked Events. And here they are. It's been checked out, it's been checked in, it's been reported broken. Okay, so let's continue. Go to List of Assets. Now let's say we want to check out this battery charger, 105. In order to do that, we go to View to get more information on that asset. We go to More Actions and then to Check Out. Now this form right here is the default form for checking things out. And our update now means that you can customize this form. So let's take a look at it right now. We've got our checkout date. We have the option to check it out to a person or to a site or location. And the only asterisk on the page is right here because you have to assign it to someone in order to check it out. The notes, all of these things. Okay, now let me show you how to customize this form. Cancel out here. You can do that here under Setup and Events. Now here is where you can customize the forms for all of these events. For check-in and check-out, if you want to report something is in for repairs or if it's broken, all of these things. You can also add custom events right here. One thing that was suggested to me is if people took their laptops with them when they went on maternity or paternity leave, you could create an event just for people who are in that situation right here. But again, the most common one is checking in and checking out. So let's work on this. Now you can cosmetically change the form just to make it look the way you want right here with Customize Form. This is a nice simple drag and drop interface. If you decided that you want the person it's assigned to at the very top, drag, drop, there it is. If you decided you want the notes way down at the bottom, bring them down here, drop, and that's where they'll live. Okay, click Save. Now if you want to change the content of that form, you do that right here in the yellow box. Set up checkout. Okay, there is a lot of information here and you probably don't need all of these things, but maybe a couple of these options will help you have the form exactly the way that works best for your business. Here's one. Let's say you want to be able to record the time that something is checked out or the time that something is checked in. In order to do that, just click this box right here. Now, as I mentioned before, only things that have the red asterisk are required to continue. Maybe you want to make it required that the time is written down when somebody checks something out. In order to do that, you go over here and change this from optional to yes, data required. Now these labels, they can also be changed. So for example, this could be remote work start, this could be remote work end, and this can be time zone. Maybe this set of labels makes more sense for the way you use the system. I want to point out two more things. As I said earlier, things can be checked out to a person or to a site or location. If it doesn't make sense for you to have the site or location check things out, just uncheck this box, and now it can only be checked out to people. And a lot of people use the signature disclaimer down here. If you click this box, people will be asked to put a signature, a digital signature in when they're checking something out. If you want to make it mandatory, make sure that this box is checked. And yes, let's make it mandatory. So people will read this statement and then be asked to sign. I accept receipt and delivery of the goods and further acknowledge that the goods have been inspected and are without defect. Okay, there are several more things on this page. I just wanted to point out some of the ones that are most commonly used. Okay, go down to the bottom and click Save. And now before you move on, make sure you go to the bottom of the events page and click Submit. Okay, now let's look at this form in action. Go back to your list of assets. Again, let's check out 105. Click View. More actions. Check out. And here's the completely new form. The field for Assign To has been moved to the top. We did that with the drag and drop interface earlier. We have changed the wording of this entirely, and now we've added times. In order to check things out, you need to put in the date and the time. You can use this new update to streamline the process of checking things out, or you can make this form incredibly robust so you get tons of information each time somebody checks something out. Okay, so let's fill out the checkout form. First, you have to assign something to a person, which obviously you have to do because there is a red asterisk. These two things are required to continue. So go to the pull-down menu, start typing in the name. If the person is already in the system, their name will pop up. If not, you can always add a new person right here with new. Here's the start date. Let's add the end date. Apply. All right, all of this is optional, as I said, but let's fill it in anyway. Okay, and proceed to checkout. Remember, we checked the box that now requires a signature if you want to check something out, so that's why this has popped up. And the person can digitally put their signature in right here, which I will forge because this is not actually a real person, and click Checkout. There it is. The asset is checked out by Walter. One more thing I want to talk about is users and permissions. When I talked to our people at AssetTiger HQ, they said this is something that people call in a lot about. Essentially, you're assigning people to a group, and those groups have different kinds of access to AssetTiger. Let me show you what I mean. Okay, so let's go over here to Advanced and pull down to Security Groups. Now what you see is the three security groups that we start you out with. At the top, we have the admin group, who has the most access. At the bottom, we have the viewer group, which has the least access. And if you want to add groups, you can do that at any time by clicking right here, create a new group. And you can also edit these groups so they can be exactly what you want them to be. When we start out, the admin group has complete access to everything in the system. They can add people, they can add resources, they can add funding, they can do anything that you can do right now. Anybody in the admin group can adjust as well. One step down is the manager group. This has some of the access, but not all of it. And at the bottom is the viewer group. The viewer group means that these people can see the assets, they can interact with the system, but they can't make big changes. So as I said, all of these groups are customizable. So let's take a look at the access of the viewer group and see if we want to change anything. Okay, to do that, you go to Edit Group right here. And this will open up a lot of information about how the viewer group works. Right here are different tabs, so you can adjust the way reports work, the way the dashboard looks, a lot of different things. But let's look at the assets first. Okay, so if you are in the viewer group, you can view assets. Great. You can reserve assets. Also makes sense. But you can't add assets or edit assets or delete assets. All this makes sense to me. Let's go a little further down. The people in the viewer group have access to all the different sites, all the departments, all the categories. I think that makes sense too. And look at actions with assets. All right, now currently people in the viewer group can't check things in and check things out, but I think anybody should be able to do that. So I'm going to enable check in and check out by clicking right here. And once you're happy with all the options, click submit to save them. All right, let's illustrate this with an example. Let's say a new person is coming to the company, an entry-level position, and we want to add her to the system and assign her a security group. We do that by going to Advanced and down here to Users. All right, here is a list of people who currently work at the company. To add a new user, go up to this button right here, click Add New User. The first thing you get asked is to select a security group right at the top, so let's do that. Again, remember that the admin group has complete access to everything, the manager group is somewhere in the middle, and the viewer group has the least access. Since this is an entry-level position, this person is going to be in the viewer group. I'm going to select that and type in her information. Customer service rep. All right, a couple more things at the bottom. Her time zone, date format. We can skip this. We can upload a photo. I'm going to skip this. And let's click submit. Now Allegra will be sent a verification email, and when she clicks on that, she will be officially in the system in the viewer group. Okay, so I hope that answers some of your questions about user groups and about everything on AssetTiger. And remember, there's actually a library of videos that can help you with any questions you might have. Let me show you where that is. It's right here under Help Support and Videos. Here you'll see videos about uploading assets, about customizing alerts and reports, even using the mobile app. And of course, you can always contact us. Feel free. You can find our information right here again under Help Support and Contact Us. Here's our email and our phone numbers. Okay, thanks for sticking with me through this long demo. I think we're getting close to 40 minutes. I appreciate your time and thank you for using AssetTiger.